This right here is what you love to see, a perfect ending to what I would say is a perfect anime. And I've recognized that in terms of Western fans, most don't appreciate the Great Jahy the same way I do. I've actually had comments saying the way I gush about this show is how Japanese viewers typically gush about this show. And I mean, seriously, this was a remarkable ending. I initially had the plans to jump into the manga most likely once this wraps up, and honestly, I feel content. There are certain times you get an ending for an anime that, of course, it's open. There can be still more stories to tell, more goofy moments to be had, new characters to be met. But it's hard not to walk out of episode 20 and say, this feels like a perfect stopping point. Sure, the Great Jahy wasn't ready to leave the pub and start her own restaurant. She wasn't ready to restore the Dark Realm, right? But this is kind of like the perfect ending for her character. She gets to continue to live a childhood with Kokoro and really get to feel like a kid, something she probably never got to experience in the Dark Realm. She gets to have an adult life with the manager and landlady and, the magical girl, Sue, everything like that. It just feels like she has two different lives that she gets to experience that are full of wholesome and hilarious events, with every character that we've come to know and love in the show getting a moment in this episode. I wasn't expecting nearly 6 minutes of Sawa in this episode whatsoever. I thought maybe a cameo at the end, like the fireworks moment where they're all gathering together. I thought that's what she was gonna get. That's the perfect way to really show you her as well, right? She's very much trying to compete with Jahy, and she gets made fun of and things like that, but ultimately, the misunderstanding with the landlady and just everything like that, she very much feels like she has this motherly big sister connection with both of them, and it really feels like everyone stopped in this episode and said, the connections we've made over these 20 episodes are not going to be forgotten, and we can leave never touching on their story again, whether a OVA or a second season or you jump in the manga. You don't have to do that, and they're going to be fine. But if they ever did want to come back to this years down the line, there's definitely room to do so. I think Jahy, without a doubt, grew a hell of a lot. She went from a very questionable and evil character, given certain flashbacks we've seen, to a little girl embracing the wonders of life and almost growing up with it. I mean, the fact that if you would have insulted her before, that's the thing that would have triggered her. But now, insulting Kokoro is the thing that would trigger her more so than herself. And the fact that, this still has that karma true to it. The fact that she's technically not a kid, so the fact that she entered a child thing and her prize was just a bunch of toys and stuff that she doesn't care about. It's kind of like comparing her punishments from earlier in the show to comparing her punishments now. It's night and day. Her punishment now is, her friend Kokoro gets a bag of treats and goodies that she has no interest in. But it's not the same thing as her being stuck in a shitty apartment. It's not the same thing as her being stuck at a job she doesn't want. We've established a few weeks back that she could have been living with the landlady and boss this entire time had her ego not held her down. So we don't need to see her move out of that apartment. We know that even if they never touched upon it again, there's a path for her to go live in a nice home with a loving family. We know that she cares about her working relationship and that, even if Druji decided to buy and furnish and cover all the expenses, that's where she wants to be, not with her. So instead, Druji gets to make even more money while thinking she services the Great Jahy. It just was a very satisfying episode that made it feel like it didn't follow the traditional fireworks episode template, because typically these types of episodes I love. The firework festival, they're in their, kimonos and the fireworks are going off, all the characters come together. Basically, the last handful of minutes of this episode is what I thought they were going to do. But instead, we got something different with the just rituals that they're doing, like carrying of the shrine and the dances and just the connection to everything. The fact that they were able to repair the shop. I actually thought, I mentioned in last week's video where I thought the place that Druji was going to get, that she was going to give it to the boss. But instead, they're able to repair it, which makes even more sense. I mean, really, would she want to move to some big fancy location like that? No. We understand that she's a bit more humble in that department, but the fact that they're willing to send her a party to say, hey, it's okay that you're leaving, initially kind of setting it up the landlady was very pissed off that she wanted to leave in the first place, but everyone handles kind of separation differently. But the fact that, of all things, she wanted to stick there, she wanted to see the same customers, see the same faces, and, even though she's making it seem like it's no big deal, it's a very, very big deal. This show, I think, was honestly a flawless anime. It set out to be something very simple on paper, But over 20 episodes, we really did see a hell of a lot of character development, and the great part about it wasn't just on Jahy's side, it was the cast overall, like everyone who came from the Dark Realm. I mean, Druji probably had some of the craziest development in subtle ways. I mean, she was someone who you could make an argument that if she learned that someone like Jahy is very much being influenced by humans, who knows what she'll do. Instead, she became a person who, when seeing her being dragged by a little girl and enjoying human culture, instead of being upset saying that's not the same Jahy, she realizes that wherever Jahy is, the Dark Realm is there as well. And the fact of the matter is she can join in on that cultural practice and enjoy that as well. Sawa went from trying to kill her to attack her to doing all these crazy experiments to enjoying the wonders of life as well. She still looks at her as a rival, but you can also realize that not seeing them anymore, you know they're not going to try to kill each other. One, Jahy doesn't even remember her half the time, and two, it just is going to end in something wholesome. It just is great to see the cast as a whole, and really, I walked in this episode only needing Kokoro. As long as I got some Kokoro moments, I was going to be A-okay. The fact that they gave everyone their time to shine, this is the only way to wrap up this show, because there's no guarantee you'll ever see more. Even if you catch up to the manga and the manga's ongoing, you never know what 2 to 3 years down the line will look like. I mean, just look at The Devil's a Part-Timer is finally getting a season 2. No one thought that would happen. So it's not impossible that they could come back to this someday and carry on. But as it stands, this is without it one of the most satisfying stomping points I've seen for an anime adapting an ongoing manga, leaving room for more should they pursue it, but also feeling completely satisfied that I don't need to go read the manga, actually. I don't need to do anything other than maybe rewatch this show a couple dozen times and buy that Blu-ray when they do release it. I think the only thing that is a little disappointing, I think, in terms of community reactions of people enjoying the show is I don't think the production got as much praise as it probably deserved. Now, don't get me wrong, there was definitely moments in episodes where things were standing a little too still, or facial designs, or even the character models in general weren't the best, which probably will get touched up in the BD release. But I mean, the number of reactions we saw for all the different characters, and just the location design, the background details, I mean, from that market, the festival, like, this show had a lot of detail that isn't obvious at first glance, but should some of that detail have not been there, it would have felt like a lot less of a finished production. Background detail and facial reactions, very underappreciated, but added so much care to this. And I mean, I'm just glad they skipped the opening and the ending was playing with character moments, because episodes like these need all the minutes they can get, and this episode was full of hilarious, heartwarming, oh my god, that's so cute, to, of course, a couple of questionable moments, but that male magical girl is still the best character, you can't tell me otherwise. This was a hell of a fun show. This could have gotten 10 views every single week, and I would have continued to cover it as bad as it would have looked on the channel with the analytics. This show was a blast, and I thank everyone watching who enjoyed the reviews as well. This was a fun one. Not a lot of us discussing it, but I think those of us who were discussing it had a damn good time doing so. So, let me know your thoughts, feelings on the last time for the Great Jahy will not be defeated. What do you think of the ending? Anything else you would have wanted to see? Let me know down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you're new around here. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.